Good evening, dear listener. Welcome to the Sleep Debuff Spell channel. It is my utmost pleasure to accompany you today with a beautiful story from the Arabian Nights. Please sit back, relax. You may close your eyes and enjoy the journey to the Arabian Night. The story I will tell you today was about the Sassanid Kingdom king, who had his wife executed after finding that she has been unfaithful. He will then marrying a new bride every night, and execute his bride the following morning until one day he meets Scheherazade, the daughter of his vizier. This is how the story begins. In the history of the ancient Sassanid dynasty, which ruled for about 400 years from Persia to the borders of China, beyond the great river Ganges, we read about one of their kings who was said to be the best ruler of his time. His people loved him, and his neighbors were afraid of him. When he died, he left his kingdom stronger and more prosperous than any other king had ever done. The two sons who lived after him were very close, and it hurt the older one, Shahryar, a lot that the laws of the empire said he couldn't share his power with his younger brother, Scotsman. In fact, this situation kept bothering Shahryar for 10 years, so he separated the country of Great Tartary from the Persian Empire and made his brother king. Now, the Sultan Shahryar had a wife whom he loved more than anything else in the world. It made him happiest to surround her with beauty and give her the best clothes and most beautiful jewelry. After a few years, he found out by accident that she had completely lied to him. Her actions were so bad that he felt he had to follow the law of the land and tell the Grand Vizier to kill her. The blow was so hard that he almost lost his mind. He said that he was sure that all women were as bad as the Sultana if you could just find them, and that the less of them there were in the world, the better. So, every night he got a new wife, and the next morning he had her strangled in front of the Grand Vizier, whose job it was to give the Sultan these unhappy brides. The poor man didn't want to do his job, but he had no choice. Every day, he saw a girl get married and a wife die. This behavior made everyone in the town very scared, and all they could hear were cries and sobs. In one house, a father was crying over the loss of his daughter, and in another, a mother might have been shaking with fear over what would happen to her child. Before, the Sultan had been showered with blessings, but now the air was full of curses. The Grand Vizier had two daughters. The older one was named Scheherazade, and the younger one was called Dinarzade. Dinarzade didn't have any special skills that set her apart from other girls, but her sister was very smart and brave. Her father gave her the best teachers in philosophy, medicine, history, and the arts. On top of that, she was the most beautiful girl in all of Persia. When the Grand Vizier was talking to his oldest daughter, Scheherazade, who was his pride and joy, she said,
"Father, I have a favor to ask of you. Will you let me have it?"
"I can't say no to you," he said. "That's fair and reasonable."
"Then listen," said Scheherazade. "I am determined to put an end to this cruel thing the Sultan does and save the girls and their mothers from the terrible fate that awaits them."
"That would be a great thing to do," the Grand Vizier replied, "but how do you plan to do it?"
"My father," Scheherazade said, "it is you who have to give the Sultan a new wife every day, and I beg you with all the love you have for me to let me have the honor."
The Grand Vizier jumped back in shock and asked, "Have you lost your mind? What made you think of such a thing? You should already know what it means to be the Sultan's bride by now."
"Yes, my father, I know it well," she said, "and it doesn't scare me to think about it. If I fail, I will die with honor, and if I succeed, I will have done a lot for my country."
"It doesn't matter," the Grand Vizier said. "I will never agree. If the Sultan told me to stab you in the heart with a dagger, I would have to do it. What a hard job for a dad. Ah, if you don't fear death, at least fear the pain you bring me. Scheherazade asked her father again.
Will you give me what I ask?
What? Are you still being so stubborn? The Grand Vizier asked. Why are you so set on getting yourself killed? But the girl would not listen to what her father said, and in the end, the Grand Vizier had to give in. He went to the palace in sadness to tell the Sultan that he would bring Scheherazade to him the next evening. The Sultan was very surprised when he heard this news. How did you decide, he asked, to give me your own daughter as a sacrifice? Sire, the Grand Vizier replied, it's her own wish. Even the sad fate that lies ahead for her couldn't stop her. Let there be no mistake, Vizier, the Sultan said. Don't forget that you'll have to kill her yourself. If you don't agree, I swear that you'll lose your head. Sire, the Vizier replied, I will obey you no matter what. I am your subject, even though I am a father. So, he told the Grand Vizier that he could bring his daughter whenever he wanted. The Vizier told Scheherazade about this, and she reacted as if it were the best news in the world. She thanked her father very much for letting her marry the Sultan. When she saw that he was still crying, she told him that she hoped he would never regret letting her marry the Sultan. Then she went to get ready for the wedding and begged for her sister Dinarzade to come talk to her. Scheherazade spoke to her like this when they were alone.
Dear sister, I need your help with something very important. My father is going to take me to the palace to celebrate my wedding with the Sultan. When His Highness meets me, I will beg him, as a last favor, to let you sleep in our room so that I can be with you on my last night. If, as I hope, he grants me my wish, wake me up an hour before dawn and tell me. My sister, if you are not asleep, I beg you to tell me one of your charming stories before the sun rises. Then I will start, and I hope that by doing this, the people will be freed from the fear that is over them.
Dinarzade said she would be happy to do whatever her sister wanted. When the usual time came, the Grand Vizier took Scheherazade to the palace and left her alone with the Sultan. The Sultan told her to take off her veil and was amazed by how beautiful she was. But when he saw that she was crying, he asked what was wrong.
Scheherazade cried and said, Sire, I have a sister who loves me as much as I love her. Please let her sleep in the same room with us tonight, since this is the last night we'll be together.
Scheherazade asked Shahryar to send for Dinarzade, and he agreed. As promised, Dinarzade woke up an hour before sunrise and said,
My dear sister, if you are not sleeping, please tell me one of your charming stories before the sun rises. It's the last time I'll get to listen to you. She didn't answer her sister, but instead looked at the Sultan. Will you let me do what my sister wants me to do? She asked.
Willingly, was his response. So Scheherazade began.
Sire, once upon a time, there was a merchant who had a lot of land, goods, and cash on hand.
He had to go on trips from time to time to take care of his business. One day, he had to go a long way from home, so he got on his horse and took a small wallet with a few biscuits and dates in it. He had to go through the desert, where there was no food, so he didn't want to go hungry. He got there without any problems, did his business, and then started back home. On the fourth day of his trip, the sun was very hot, so he got off the road and rested under some trees. He found a clear, running water fountain at the base of a big walnut tree. He got off his horse, tied it to a branch of the tree, and sat down by the fountain after taking some dates and cookies from his wallet. After this cheap meal, he went to the fountain to wash his face and hands. When he was doing this job, he saw a very smart, very angry, very big man with a scimitar coming towards him. Get up! He yelled in a horrible voice. Let me kill you like you killed my son." As he said these words, he let out a scary yell. The merchant replied, "Alas, good sir, what could I have done to you to deserve death?" He was just as scared of the monster's face as he was of what he was saying. "I will kill you," the genie said again and again. "Just as you killed my son." "But," the merchant asked, "how could I have killed your son? I don't know him, and I've never even seen him." "When you got here, did you not sit down on the ground, take some dates out of your wallet, and throw stones around while you ate them?" asked the genies. "Yes," the merchant said, "I did that for sure." Then, the genies said, "I have to tell you that you killed my son. While you were throwing the stones around, my son walked by, and one of them hit him in the eye and killed him. So I shall kill you." "Ah, sir, please forgive me," cried the merchant. "I will have no mercy on you," said the genies. "But, I did not mean to kill your son, so I beg you to spare my life." "No," the genie said. "You killed my son. So I will kill you." With that, he grabbed the merchant by the arm, threw him to the ground, and raised his saber to cut off the man's head. The merchant said he was innocent, cried about his wife and kids, and tried desperately to change his fate. The genies stood there with his sword raised until he was done, but he wasn't even a little bit moved. Scheherazade stopped talking because it was now daylight and she knew that the Sultan always got up early to go to the council.
"Yes, sister," Dinarzade agreed, "this is a great story." Scheherazade said, "The rest is even better, and you would agree if the Sultan would let me live another day and let me tell you about it the next night."
Shahryar, who was enjoying Scheherazade's story, thought to himself, "I'll wait until tomorrow. I can always kill her when I know how it ends." The Grand Vizier was in a terrible state of worry the whole time. But he was very happy when the Sultan walked into the council chamber and didn't give the terrible order he was expecting. Before dawn the next morning, Dinarzade told her sister,
"Dear sister, if you're awake, please keep telling your story."
The Sultan didn't wait for Scheherazade. "Finish," he said. "The story of the genies and the merchant. I want to know how it ends." Scheherazade continued her story. Every morning, this was the case. The Sultan let the Sultana live so she could finish her story. When the merchant saw that the genies was going to cut off his head, he asked him, "Please, just one more word. Give me a little more time so I can go home and say goodbye to my wife and kids and write my will. When I'm done, I'll come back here, and you'll have to kill me." But, the genie said, "I'm afraid you won't come back if I give you the time you want." "I promise you, on my honor," the merchant said, "that I will always come back." The genies asked, "How much time do you need?" "Please give me a year," the merchant said. "I promise that I'll be waiting for you under these trees in a year at midnight to give myself up." The genies then left him by the fountain and went away. After getting over his fear, the merchant got on his horse and went on his way. When he got back home, his wife and children were so happy to see him. But instead of hugging them, he started crying so hard that they knew something terrible was wrong. "Tell us, please," his wife asked. "What's going on?" "Alas," he told him, "I only have a year to live." Then he told them what had happened between him and the genies and how the genies had agreed to come back a year later to be killed. When they heard this terrible news, they felt hopeless and cried a lot. The following year, the merchant started to take care of his business, starting with paying off his debts. He gave his friends gifts and gave a lot of money to the poor. He let his slaves go and took care of his wife and kids. The year went by quickly, and soon he had to leave. When he tried to say goodbye, he was so sad that he had a hard time pulling himself away. He finally got to the place where he had seen the genies for the first time, on the exact day he had planned. He got off the horse and sat down at the edge of the fountain. He was in terrible suspense as he waited for the genies. While he was waiting in this way, an old man with a donkey came toward him. They said hello to each other, and then the old man asked him, "Brother, may I ask, what brought you to this desert place where there are so many bad genies? When you look at the beautiful trees, you might think there are no people there, but it is dangerous to stay there for long." The merchant explained to the old man why he had to come. He was shocked as he listened. "This is a most astounding story. I'd like to be there when you talk with the genies." So, he went up to the merchant and sat down next to him. While they talked, a second old man and two black dogs walked up. He said hello and asked them what they were doing there. The old man who was leading the hind told him the story of the merchant and the genies. After hearing the story, the second old man also decided to stay there to see what would happen. He sat down with the other two and started talking. Then a third old man came and joined them. He asked the merchant with them why he was so sad looking. They told him the story, and he decided to wait with the others to see what would happen between the genies and the merchant. Soon, they could see a thick cloud of smoke in the distance. This smoke got closer and closer until it was gone all at once, and they saw the genies. Without saying a word, he walked up to the merchant with a sword in his hand and grabbed him by the arm, saying, "Get up and let me kill you as you killed my son." The merchant and the three old men all started to cry and moan. The old man leading the hind then threw himself at the monster's feet and said, "Prince of the genies, I beg you to stop your anger and listen to me. I'm going to tell you my story and the story of the hind I'm carrying with me. If you find it more interesting than the story of the merchant you're about to kill, I hope you'll take away a third of his punishment." The genies thought about it for a while, and then he said, "Okay, I agree. I am now going to begin my story," said the old man, "so please attend." Thank you for watching. The story of the old man and the hind will continue on chapter 2 of the videos. If you like this type of video, please subscribe and like. Good night, and see you on the next chapter.